All right. Well, thank you all for joining today and to learn more about community science, Thriving Earth Exchange, and how you can get involved with our program. Today's webinar, we're going to break it down into two sections. My team and I will first present on the nature of our program, which will be recorded. And then we'll shut off the recording to share updates for upcoming opportunities that we'll be holding and open up for questions. So we hope that you'll be able to stay with us until the end. And feel free to add questions throughout the presentation using the Q&A button at the bottom, and we'll make sure to get those answered for you. Thriving Earth Exchange is a part of American Geophysical Union, or AGU for short. We're the world's largest association of Earth and space scientists. We have a global community of scientists and advocates who focus on advancing Earth and space sciences for the benefit of humanity and the environment. At AGU, we help scientists research and share societally relevant work with our 24 peer-reviewed journals and our annual meeting of 30,000 plus attendees, and of course with Thriving Earth Exchange, just to name a few. Thriving Earth is helping to change the culture of science to be more societally and locally relevant. Traditional scientific models are often scientist-led, so on the right side of this graphic, where researchers and academics would determine the research questions being asked, conduct the work, publish it, and all for the benefit of really science and other scientists, which has led to a disconnect between scientific outcomes and societal needs. Thriving Earth Exchange has seen that scientific outcomes have increased public buy-in, better chances of recommendations being implemented, and just overall more societally relevant when this work is community-led, where communities bring their insights and priorities and together collaborate with scientists and experts to co-create solutions that make sense for the community. It is within this space where Thriving Earth Exchange operates. And with that, I'll now turn it over to my colleague to dive into a bit more details about our program. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Julia Genti, and I'm the Program Manager for Community Science Fellows at Thriving Earth Exchange. And now that we've given you some context on AGU and community science more broadly, let's dive into AGU's Thriving Earth Exchange program and how we work to advance AGU's priorities around effective community science. Thriving Earth Exchange is AGU's community science program that functions by connecting communities with science. We are a fully virtual program that connects communities with resources, project managers, and scientific experts to address their unique environmental concerns. Our program launched in 2013. We've trained over 1,500 people on how to effectively do community science, and we've launched over 360 projects in 14 countries, including 20 Spanish-speaking projects. Our program has three main roles in addition to Thriving Earth Exchange staff: community leaders, volunteer scientists, and community science fellows. We'll dive a little bit more into each of these in more detail later on in the webinar, but at a glance, community leaders are really the crux of our program. They represent their community and apply to our program with an idea for how a science-based project can help better their community. They really work to ensure that the project has a tangible, positive local impact, and they work with their fellow Thriving Earth Exchange staff and their volunteer scientists to co-develop and support project implementation. And the Community Science Fellow is a volunteer who serves as a project manager for a specific project. They make sure there's great communication between their project team and Thriving Earth Exchange staff, and they make sure that the project runs smoothly throughout its duration. And last but certainly not least, the volunteer scientists are also volunteers who provide their expertise, their insights, and their resources to the project. They're really responsible for leading on the science part of the project with support from the community leader and the fellow. And of course, Thriving Earth Exchange staff are there each step of the way for the project to make sure that the project implementation is going smoothly and to help maximize the project impacts after the completion of the project and just help troubleshoot any issues that may arise along the way. So Thriving Earth Exchange is really focused on connecting communities with the resources that they need to carry out a project with really clear, tangible local impacts. Our projects are 18 months in length, which means that projects that are interested in applying really must have a clear focus and vision for how they can work to complete a project in this short time frame. Our projects are focused broadly on climate and earth and space science, but our work has focused on issues like testing soil and air quality or water quality, mapping new or existing data using GIS software, communicating research and data to communities, developing natural hazard mitigation strategies, and things of that nature. And we're really open to all project ideas as long as they have a clear scope and fall within the purview of these disciplines. And participating in our program can really help build leadership skills for all of our participants, as well as helping shift the culture of science toward a model that's less exclusionary to communities and really helps to empower communities to truly make a local difference. In terms of the projects that we are and aren't able to support, projects that are focused on science-based issues like natural hazards, environmental health, pollution, natural resources, projects that are focused on enhancing local decision-making and informed policy changes, projects that are focused on resilient infrastructure. These are all types of projects that we can support. Whereas projects that we can't support are focused on political campaign activities, lobbying, advocacy, projects that collect personal health information, and issues that are unrelated to geoscience or climate science broadly. And every Thriving Earth Exchange project is unique and dynamic in their own way, but all of our successful projects kind of share some similar characteristics that really make them extremely successful in their own rights. And these include effective and engaged community leadership, having a really clear scope as well as a reasonable timeline, being scientific in focus, having a clear community impact, and enabling long-term community involvement even after the project has ended.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Sherry Rose. I'm the program manager for community leader engagement here at Thriving Earth Exchange. So community projects focus and its timeline are a major component for a community project fulfilling its outcomes. But we also want to recognize that projects are only as successful as the people on the project team. So within even every Thriving Earth Exchange community project, there are going to always be 2 community leaders, 1 community science fellow, and a small team of experts, and it can be variable. One project might need only 1, and another project might need up to 5. And this is all depending on the project scope and intended outcomes. Next slide, please. So each member of the project team brings their own level of expertise. Community leaders are the community expert. They bring the community context, the knowledge, the insights, and the connections. They will live and or work in the community, and they may be paid through their organization's role or might volunteer as just a concerned citizen. Community Science Fellows are the project manager. They guide the project team through the Thriving Earth Exchange's community science process, ensuring communication and coordination. They will also always work remotely within the US or sometimes internationally. And we kind of view them as highly trained volunteers that might be compensated through academic credit and or professional experience. And last but not least, we have our volunteer scientists. These are our scientific experts. They bring the scientific knowledge, insights, and connections, and they can work either in person or remotely. They can be located within a community, the same town, city, or state as the community leaders, or they can be located somewhere throughout the United States. But we want to remind everyone that they're lending their expertise pro bono, and they're volunteering with the project because it most likely is connected to their professional work. Next slide, please. So who can be a community leader? That's the really big question I always get. And the honest answer is our community leaders can represent multiple roles of a community. We want concerned citizens, grassroots leaders, small business owners, governmental officials, community activists. We just want individuals that are passionate about addressing local environmental issues that impact the place that they live and work. So although we do have community leaders that may be paid employees of a nonprofit or even a city staff, we want to remind that everyone can be welcomed as long as you are active within your neighborhood and community boards. Because community leaders are the catalyst to a project. The main role of our community leaders is to act as the trusted experts of their communities. They represent and speak on behalf of the community to ensure that the project is relevant and impactful for the community at large. And we always want to say that we need two. Next slide. So being an effective community leader means being a strong communicator, especially in a virtual setting. Since our program is online, you'll need to be able to be comfortable using platforms like Zoom, like we are on today, Microsoft Teams, or other virtual tools to stay connected. Remember, community leaders will be working with their project team, not for them. So the community science fellow they are paired with might not even be in the same city, state, or country. So being proactive about staying in touch and maintaining transparency is important throughout the project. And don't forget, community leaders will need to dedicate at least 3 to 4 hours a week to keep things moving forward. When we combine solid communication, good collaboration, and consistent time management, we'll be setting the project and community up for success. Next slide, please. So moving on from project roles, I want a little discussion on what our typical project timeline looks like. So all of our projects span between 12 to 18 months. So as I mentioned before, we anticipate a time commitment of 3 to 4 hours per week for community leaders and fellows during the first 3 to 4 months of the project running, and then followed by 3 to 4 hours per month thereafter. The first step involves the community group getting to know their assigned community science fellow. A community science fellow is a highly trained volunteer, again, who's going to be serving as a project manager for the community project. The community leaders will be focusing on what the problems are and why it's important to find solutions for the respective communities. And the community science fellow is going to be in collaboration with the experts, handles the who will be involved in creating the solutions, how the science will be conducted, and when the project timeline will conclude, even suggests reapplying for Thriving Earth Exchange for a phase 2. We've done that in the past. During their initial conversations, the fellow will introduce the idea of a community agreement, setting some shared group intentions. Then they're going to go into defining the project goals, the outline, the project plan, and then going into finding the right specialist or expert for their project to collaborate on the project and be able to find those outcomes that they're really trying to get. And next, I'm going to have my colleague go over the community science fellow things a little bit more depthly.
Thanks, Sherry. Hey everyone, I'm Britt Forsberg. I'm a coordinator for Community Science Fellow Engagement here at Thriving Earth Exchange, and I'll describe a bit more of the work that our Community Science Fellows do, where they come from, what you can expect in that role. So a Community Science Fellow is responsible for helping scope the project. And as Sherry mentioned, the first 3 or 4 months determining what is this project going to be, what steps do we need to take, what kind of expert do we need to do this work. Then the fellow will help with the match phase, finding a scientist or an expert who has the technical knowledge that the project needs. This stage is variable, but can take several months as well. Then the fellow will help support the team through the solve phase. This is a more active part of the project. So it could be collecting data. It might be preparing reports, again, coming together with your expert, with the community lead, with the community science fellow to really be moving through those project stages. And then finally, the fellow will help facilitate, enable sharing. So being able to share what you've accomplished together, being able to share how your work might help other communities, but always sharing with Thriving Earth Exchange staff where you are and letting us know where we can support. So community science fellows come from a wide variety of backgrounds. Many are early career. They might be in grad school, they might be recent graduates, but there are also people who are mid-career. We also have people near the end or who've retired who are coming back and using their volunteer skills this way. Sherry has mentioned a couple times that they're really global and diverse. Right now, our fellows live in 18 different countries, but there are also a number of international students participating here as part of their academic programs in the US. So again, your fellow might be in a different time zone. Your fellow will likely not live where you live. but they are well trained. We have 2 full days of training that we provide, as well as robust online resources and consistent support from our staff to make sure that fellows have what they need to do this work well. But above all, our fellows are passionate and caring. They're coming to this because they want to see their work applied to real life situations. They understand that they're here to support the community. They're not here to advance their own professional or personal goals. Next up, the volunteer scientists. Because our projects span many different kinds of disciplines, a lot of things can vary here. But as a rule, these volunteer scientists are recruited by the community science fellow, then approved by the community leads. They work remotely. In most cases, there might be instances in which you do need a scientist to come to your site. Perhaps there's some data collection that needs to be done, and so your fellow can help look for someone nearby. We don't guarantee that that's possible. And there also have been lots of instances in which the scientist has been able to teach the community how to do that data collection on their own as well. So there might be multiple scientists, remembering that these are volunteers, and so scaling the work to be appropriate for one person to volunteer might mean that as a larger project, you have multiple experts or scientists. It might also mean that you have multiple expertises represented, right? Someone who can help create the project plan, someone who can analyze data, maybe someone who can help present that data, or you're looking at multiple areas. So again, there could be many experts involved in this project, and that will depend on what your specific needs are. So again, these are often remote, but can be in person. But they, like the fellows, can come from a number of different backgrounds. So they might be students, they might be professionals, they might not identify as a scientist per se, but as long as they have the information that you need, they can still support that project. Many people who are interested in participating as scientists work in industries or academia where publishing is expected, and so are interested in using this experience as part of a publication. And that is fine with us as long as that is what the community wants. And remembering that the main goals are to advance community's priorities. And so if the community is interested in publishing, they can be added as co-authors. This can be a thing that comes together. Perhaps the community really wants everyone to know the work that's happening. Maybe they want to draw attention to the issue that they're facing. But if the community does not feel comfortable with that, then the scientist is also not allowed to publish. With that, I will turn it to my colleague to talk about some additional resources we have to support all projects.
Hi everyone, hola a todos. My name is Marina Cox and I am the project coordinator for Spanish-speaking communities. So I assist them in onboarding onto our program. The Thriving Earth Exchange team has recruited and successfully onboarded roughly 20 Spanish-speaking frontline communities in the US, in Mexico, and in Peru, just to name a few. So in order for these community science projects to be set up for success, it's become crucial for our program to strategize in language inclusion efforts. So our Spanish-speaking projects do vary in terms of the level of fluency that the community leaders and project team have. So let's say, for example, we have a community leader from a community in the US that applies and states that they have a significantly large demographic of Spanish-speaking community members, but that community leader is bilingual. So for that project, our team might need to assist in translating some material during the course of the project. And that allows for the community members whose first language is Spanish to gain access to the information that's developed from this project. On the other hand, we might have a community leader from Colombia, South America, for example, who is not fluent in English. So with that, we want to make sure that we pair this project with a bilingual community science fellow. So if you are a Spanish speaker and are interested in applying as a community science fellow, then we would highly consider you working in Spanish with the Spanish-speaking community. So with that, some materials and some tools that we've developed are our fully bilingual website. We also have a Spanish translation request form, as you can see here on the left-hand side. And we've also developed lots of content and tools that we provide for these projects to ensure that their project is successful for the 18 months. Next slide. Now, I also wanted to share what could happen after the project is complete. There are still many ways that projects continue to advocate the work that they've done and ways that we support them in doing so. So, for example, we have here Dr. Angela Chalk as an example. She has continued her community science work by having multiple projects with us. Note that if you do complete a project with us, you can apply for another one, but only once your first one is complete. So Dr. Angela Chalk also presented her scientific community work at our annual meeting in 2023. And she has also continued to advocate for her community by attending events like the inaugural Community Science Congressional Visit Day with AGU in Washington, D.C. And she's continued to communicate with others by sharing her community science efforts on a podcast called Climate One. So all to say, joining Thriving Earth Exchange is really a stepping stone to perhaps achieving a larger goal for your community, and as you can see here, also professionally. Next slide. So now we're going to transition to the Q&A portion of our webinar. We will then discuss upcoming applications and deadlines related to our May cohort. So please stick around for this if you want to know more about how and when you can apply. I'm going to stop the recording here, but we have some questions in the chat that we'll go through, and feel free to continue doing so during this portion, and we will do our best to get through each one.